Review rational expressions, part three. Guys, here's the adding and subtracting. This is the most work where we have numerator work after we find the least common denominator. So just kind of remember our steps are still the same. You're going to factor, then of course you're going to find the least common denominator. And remember, when you find the least common denominator, you're going to find restrictions. Most of our work is going to be focusing on the numerator, and do not forget we have to simplify because after all, rational expressions are indeed fractions. So I want to just also remind you when you can simplify and when you cannot. So if you notice over here, I have a sad face because I cannot simplify something across a plus or a minus sign with another fraction. So remember your plus and your minus symbols, those are like stop signs. You cannot hop over and try to cancel those out. What you can do is you can cancel within the same fraction. So remember, I also cannot cancel out pieces. The only time that I can cancel out things is when they are not inside parentheses or part of another binomial. On the flip side, if you have a multiplication dot, that is a green light. You can cancel anything on top with anything on the bottom over here. So let's go ahead and jump into our notes for today. This is example one. And really, guys, this was just a reminder that you have to have a common denominator. These are already common, so all I would do is focus on the numerator work. So I know that C is not going to be equal to 1/2. And since we already have common denominators, y'all, our numerator work is going to be the next. Go ahead and put that back over the denominator. And remember, that's it. That's all you got to do. So this would be the simplified answer. And of course, you would go ahead and box in your restrictions. Let's go ahead and take a look at number two. I just want to remind you guys, if I do kind of go fast or anything like that, you can always hit the pause button. So our first thing is we are going to factor. The top is already factored. So I'm just going to focus on the bottom. I'm going to recopy the second fraction, and the only thing I can really take out is a 3. So remember the LCD. What you're going to do for the LCD is you're going to copy the first denominator exactly how it is. So we are going to go ahead and recopy x plus 4, x plus 1, and then I'm going to look at the other fraction. I'm going to write down what I have not written already. I've already written the x plus 1. So the only thing that I need to add to my least common denominator is that single 3. So at the same time, I might as well go ahead and knock out the restrictions since I'm focusing on the denominator right now. So the restrictions, I'm going to put this down here towards the end of my work. X cannot equal a -4 and -1. Remember, I don't worry about that 3 because it doesn't have an X. We only write restrictions whenever there's a variable involved. Here we go with our numerator work. So if I look at our numerator, we have a numerator of 1. If I look at the least common denominator, I'm going to multiply that 1 by whatever is missing from this fraction. So in other words, I'm focusing on the numerator. I'm going to multiply the numerator by something. But to figure out what that is, I have to look at my denominator and find the missing piece of my LCD. I've got that. I've got that. So the missing piece is just a 3. So I'm going to take this numerator, multiply it by a missing piece. I'm going to recopy the plus sign. Now I'm going to do the same exact thing to the second fraction. I'm going to rewrite the numerator, which is a 5x. And I am going to look at the denominator, figure out the missing piece from here, and then that's what I multiply by. So if you notice, I have an x plus 1. I have a 3. That's what's missing. So that's what 5x is getting multiplied by. So let me go ahead and do my order of operations here. I would combine like terms if I had anything to combine. I don't. So all I'm going to do is write it in standard form. So I'm going to put my square term first. The LCD. I'm going to go ahead and put that 3 in the top, or I'm not front of the top, in the front. And then as I'm looking at this and writing this down, I'm kind of analyzing if the numerator could be factorable, and it's not. The numerator is not factorable, so this is going to be my simplified answer. Grab those restrictions, and that is going to be it for example 2. Let's go ahead and take a look at example 3 real quick, or this should be example 3. Go ahead and make sure you have that titled as a 3. So if you notice, I have got myself a subtraction problem. So for this subtraction problem, again, if I go too fast, please remember that you can go ahead and pause the video and catch up at any time. I'm going to factor. So this is going to be x minus 3, x plus 2 for the first one. Over here, this is a perfect square trinomial. So this is going to be x plus 2 twice. Or use your exponents and raise that to the second power. All right, next step, we're going to go ahead and write the least common denominator. So LCD. Going to go ahead and look at the first fraction, write exactly what it is. Got to make sure I'm in the center here. I'm going to look at the other fraction and just pick up what I'm missing. Remember, you have to have the highest exponents of things. So over here is x plus 2, but it's not just one of them like it was over here. It's 2 of them. So if you have anything raised to an exponent, your LCD has to have that same exponent. So the only thing I need to do is make sure that I have both of those x plus 2's raised to the second power. Now we got to focus on the numerator. So I'm going to go back to the first fraction. I'm going to recopy this 5x. So you recopy the top, then you look at the bottom to figure out what you multiply by. So the bottom has this, but it only has one x plus 2. So now I know what I need to multiply this by. I got to multiply it by that other x plus 2. I'm going to recopy the minus sign, recopy the other top piece of the fraction, and then do the same thing all over again. I'm going to look at the bottom, figure out what is missing in my LCD. I've got 2 of these right here, so the missing piece for the second fraction is going to be x minus 3, so that's what I'm multiplying by. Let me go ahead and do this order of operations. Remember, when I do my order of operations after the minus sign, I'm going to go ahead and use my grouping symbols and then distribute the negative in a minute. I'm going to recopy the front piece of this. Here I go distributing the negative. I'm going to go ahead and combine like terms and write in the standard form. Now I'm ready to put it back over the least common denominator. So I'm pretty sure the top numerator is not factorable. I cannot find anything that multiplies to a 60 that combines to make a 6. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we are going to go ahead and box that in and state the restrictions because I didn't state them in the beginning. So x cannot equal a positive 3. It can also not equal a negative 2. That's it. And that's going to be the answer for that example. Guys, let's go ahead and take a look at a self-check. Again, please try to do your best. Pause, pause, pause. There you go. So hopefully you guys did all right. And that's the last part of this section.